All Saints Sunday. It's being celebrated all around the world by believers from all kind of different denominations and has been done on this weekend basically for many, many centuries. It's a time we celebrate the lives of those people that have gone before us, that remind us and teach us what does it mean to actually live the life of a saint. What's the measure of a life? The word we usually use is the word legacy, which most of the time means what we have accomplished in life, the resources we've accumulated, fame, power, networks, status, yes, even wealth. That usually marks the legacy of a person's life, but the legacy of a saint is something different. The legacy of a saint doesn't seek to point to themselves or their accomplishments in order to pass on the meaning and truth of life. A saint has a different mission altogether, and that mission is not to draw attention to themselves, but to draw attention to the one who has called them. And I'm going to add a 65th name to the list that we read today in such a beautiful way, is a saint in our family's life named Florence Young. And there's a picture of Florence. She's the one on the left. This was in 1983 or so she passed away. That's my wife, Dee, if you have not met her. Grandma Florence, Grandma Young, still to this day, from 1983 when she passed away, carries an incredible legacy of what it means to live in the service of others because of Jesus. And that's what we're going to look at today. Because the celebration of All Saints' Day, the celebration of the legacy of lives before us, we do it a disservice if we simply focus on them rather than what they actually teach us and lead us to consider. And that takes us to our text today. If you have a Bible and you'd like to read along, you may. Matthew chapter 6, if you'd like to follow along on the pew Bibles. I invite you to stand as I read from Matthew 6, words from Jesus known as a part of the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 6, starting at verse 19, the words of Jesus himself. Here's what he said. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? See, no one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and thrown into the fire tomorrow, will he not much more clothe you? You have little faith. So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? Oh, what shall we drink? What shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. My friends, this is the word of the Lord. You know what? Thanks be to God indeed. You may have a seat. Wow, what a gift. The words of Jesus. Always pointed, often difficult. Even as the eyes of love peer into our souls, when Jesus speaks, we're given this kind of awful choice whether or not to receive His mercy, His grace, His truth, or to hold fast to what we long to do. That's what this is about. The legacy of a saint. Three things, there's plenty that pours out of here, but three things specifically point out to the legacy of a saint. Because what's important to see, we read it right here, are you not much more valuable than they? Your legacy matters. Whether you're young and you're just building your legacy, or you've been around a while and you've somehow been at work hard to build your legacy, that matters to God Himself. And that gets us into the text. Here from verses 19 to 22, we see, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth. And I can see some of you saying, you know what? We got the little card about treasures. Now we've read it in the Bible. Now Chap's mentioned it. Brian mentioned it. I've been a Presbyterian most of my life, and I know when it's coming. Here they come. The money deal. All right, I'm going to theologically not let you off the hook, but actually elevate the conversation. This isn't about money. It's about everything. See, treasures are not simply about money. Treasures are about anything we accumulate to make sense of life. It's anything we do. It's any person we meet. It's any job that we've given ourselves to. It's the classes we take at school. It's the influence in the networks that we accumulate over time. These are treasures. Indeed, your life is itself a treasure. And it's a valuable treasure to God, as the scriptures say. Jesus Himself declared it so. These are your treasures. Don't limit it to simply a conversation about money, because money is usually symptomatic of the fullness of our treasures. And your treasures matter to Jesus Christ. And so what's He saying here? The builder of a legacy knows where we store the treasures. It's not that God is against treasure. God is not against what you accumulate. God is not against ambition. God is not against success. It depends on how we achieve that success and what do we do with it once we have achieved or built into our legacy. What is our legacy? We measure legacy usually by fame and power and influence and networks. But the true legacy of a saint is where they realize that our treasures do not actually belong to us. They're a gift to us for us to get in the game of what God is up to in the world. Where your treasure is, that's where your heart will be. So I invite you to ask this question, as Jesus so pointedly does, as we come to celebrate the life of these saints, and we sing together and share life with one another. Where's your treasure? What do you do with it? Your networks, your history, your life. And what does it mean for us to take our treasure and store them up in heaven? Here's what it means. A lot of people have talked about this thing called faith and work, okay? If you give your life to Christ, if you're a Christian, then what does that mean in work? What does it mean when you go to school? What does it mean with neighbors or family? How you live your life, what does it mean to be a Christian as we go through our lives? That has to do with how we build our legacy, where our treasure is stored. And a lot of people have been saying for a long time that to be a faithful believer, your job is to make sure that you do a great job at your job. If you're a parent, you do a best job you can as a parent. If you're a family person, you make sure that your family is taken care of. And so you circle the wagons around that. No matter what your role is, no matter what you give yourself to, if you're a musician, you play well and that serves Christ. You know what? Yes, that's part of the story. But if you stop there, your life will be about rapid accumulation and storing your treasures for yourself. I did a great job for you, God. Aren't you pleased? What Jesus is saying is this: where do you store that treasure? To whom does that treasure belong? Our calling is not to simply do a good job as we go through life so God stands back and applauds our efforts. Our calling is to look him in the eye and use our treasures as resources to serve him and his kingdom purposes. In other words, we have been created to give our treasures back to Christ and to be in the game. If you're a teacher, for example, you may think, somebody may have preached to you, or you may read some book or go to some conference, and somebody tell you, be a great math teacher. The better math teacher you are, you're honoring Jesus Christ. Sort of true, but if that's the end of the story, absolutely not true. If you're a teacher, you've been given power. You've been given great opportunity to be able to look around those kids that you serve and their families and that school and to watch, where are you at work, Jesus? How can I join you? How do I use my power and gift and resource of my teaching to watch you at work? And all of a sudden, you walk out of here and you notice there's that one kid that hadn't said much and been kind of lonely this semester, and you barely noticed him because you have so many of the others you give yourself away to, but all of a sudden the Spirit goes, that's the one. And you start to notice that this kid just needs that extra smile. Or maybe you just learn their name a little more carefully and you make an intentional discipline of saying their name as they walk in the class, as you smile. And saying their name as they walk out and saying something nice to them so they know that there actually is an adult who cares. Because Jesus wants to make sure that that kid knows that his legacy matters. That's what it means to be in the game, to take your treasures and hand them to Jesus and to watch where he's at work and to join him. If you're a lawyer, it's wonderful if you're a lawyer. I know about 87% of this congregation are lawyers. Isn't that right? I think you guys told me that. I've met a lot of you, and it's cleaned my act up. Let me just tell you, it's changed everything for me. Wow. And I'm going to need you shortly. But if you're a lawyer, yeah, great. Be the great lawyer and be an advocate for your client. But that's not the end. You have great power. You have great influence. What is God up to as you deal with clients and systems and structures and people to serve Jesus Christ and to use the power of your legacy that you are building? If you're in business, it's not just to do the best at selling your product or doing your business, but it's not only how you go about doing that with ethics. It's how to use the power of your position to join Jesus Christ in his mission to bring hope and justice to a world that so desperately longs for the blessing of God. See, we are given great resources. We have great power. Your legacy matters. But a bunch of you, maybe not, but as I look around, some of you are a little bit older than, some of us. And I've said this before, or you've lived a hard life, and I'm sorry, but I got to tell you, there's a horrible word that theologically Christians should never use, retired. Retired is a horrible theological word. You are never retired. Sorry, oops. Get the gold watch, hang out, watch the Irish. Sorry, I had to throw it in there. But retired, great, we're done. Done raising kids, help out with the grandkids. Done going to work, done doing the work. You know what's so beautiful about being set free as a saint? You're never done. Because the kingdom of God is on the move. And as a saint who knows that my treasures belong to Jesus Christ, you have a lifetime of power and influence and networks to be able to say, Lord, what does it mean for me to be in the game? You're not done. The joy of living is to take every breath in service of Jesus Christ in the kingdom. Then we go to the next couple of verses about the eye. The eye is a lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. If your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. That's kind of where it comes down. Is the bad eye, is the eye that dictates one vocation in the service of self. That's what Jesus is saying. It's the good eye that keeps our eyes focused on what are you up to, God, and what are you calling me to be about? The legacy of the saint is to walk where they walked, where it's not about building our legacy, accumulating our influence and power and wealth. It's about recognizing that God has given me all this because my legacy matters, and it doesn't matter just when I'm gone or when I get old. Right now, when we walk out of here, this is the message of Jesus to you and to me. And it's the kingdom of God in action, and your story matters. Don't you know the Father loves you more than the material world? He longs to give you life, not simply to rescue you from the failure and brokenness of the past, but to lift you to a new state of agency and vocation, which we'll talk about next week. And that's the third thing, is a saint knows where they're running. What do you run after? What do you store for yourself? Where Jesus clearly says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. Actually, that word should probably be translated, and his justice. Seek first his kingdom and his justice, and everything will be added to you. The fullness of life until the last breath is to trust Jesus Christ, to know him, to follow him, to serve him well in whatever we do and whoever we encounter, but to see ourselves as his agent in a world that longs for his touch. That's the legacy of a saint. And that's why we come to this table. We come to this table to be reminded that our life is not our own and our legacy doesn't belong to ourselves. We come to receive the forgiveness for our failures and grace to help in the hour of need. Lord Jesus, grant us the courage to build a legacy for your sake and your kingdom. Amen.